It wasn't pretty, but the Miami Dolphins closed out week 1 of the 2024 season with a 20-17 victory over Jacksonville. We're breaking it down here on this Club Dub episode of Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami, NFL draft lead for the 33rd team. You can find our shows here on the Locked On Network on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Tip of the cap to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it. Here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use an all lowercase code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Club Dub. No one said it was going to be easy. I told you guys this Jacksonville team was a tough out. They have a lot of talent. They have the ability to do a lot of things that could push a lot of hard buttons for the Dolphins. And like we talked about on Thursday with the crossover with Tony Wiggins, you can do a lot of things right playing the Miami Dolphins, but then blink and look up and you have a couple of explosives and you lose a football game. The number one takeaway that you need to walk from week 1, Jacksonville, Miami, it is always better to win ugly than to lose pretty. Or win pretty in this case. Ugly win for the Miami Dolphins. But they pushed the right buttons down the stretch. And I do not think that should be overlooked. I do not think that is something that we should take for granted. This was a team that was down 14-0 in the first half. Could not do anything right. Perfect summary of the day that was to come for the Dolphins. Tyreek Hill is temporarily apprehended on his way to the stadium for a traffic citation, put in handcuffs, face down on the pavement in an incident that led to the officer already, the local police sharing and reporting and releasing a statement that the officer one of the officers in question has been placed on administrative leave while they conduct an investigation. Sure feels like this team was maybe a little out of sorts. Whether it was the Tyreek situation or everybody not practicing or playing together throughout much of the preseason. Very disjointed first half for the Miami Dolphins. There's no question there. And some of this is the personnel challenges that I think Jacksonville provided. You saw some of the escort wide zone that we talked about on the Friday show about trying to come up with a winning formula. But by and large, Miami didn't run the ball with their backs all that effectively until Jeff Wilson comes in down the stretch and goes 5 for 26, and the Dolphins pop out a little bit of power, and they come downhill, and they challenge Jacksonville late in the fourth quarter, and they say, okay, we're trying to milk the clock. We got the ball back. We forced a punt defensively. We're going to put the screws on. There were a lot of unforced errors. We're going to get into game balls. We're going to get into adversity and how the Dolphins bounced back from it. Just a quick recap of the game in its entirety. Miami finished with 18 first downs to Jacksonville's 17. Miami goes 8 of 16 on third down, but 0 for 2 on fourth down. Those 2 fourth down turnovers on downs came in Jacksonville's scoring territory in the first half. At some point, let's just punt the ball and pin them and make them go the full length of the field. Jacksonville did it twice, but make them do it every time. Miami averages 6.2 yards per play thanks to explosives. Obviously, the 80-yard catch and run from Tyreek Hill. Sacked 3 times. Miami finishes with 81 rushing yards, 3.2 yards per rush, 1 for 2 in the red zone. We had special teams miscues with the missed field goal from Jason Sanders earlier in the game before he put one through off the left hash from 50 plus out to win the football game. You had defensively giving up almost 5 yards per carry. Penalties, 9 for 103. Miscommunications. Guys dropping coverage. Somebody running scot-free up the seam wide open. Some tackling stuff. Offensively, some holding penalties. Rob Jones had 2 of them that were just brutal and had no impact on the play. Errors aplenty. What you would expect from a week 1 contest, perhaps, but I think above and beyond. But it was the fact that this team went down 14-0, go down, they get a score themselves, finally put a drive together, and then just totally forget how to plaster guys defensively, play super soft, and give up a field goal before the end of the half. They go down 10 into the half. You got one of the guys who I'm going to give a game ball to, spoiler alert, is Jake Bailey. I thought he kicked his rear end off. Put 3 inside the 20, put 2 inside the 5. And in each one of those instances, Jacksonville goes the length of the field. Jacksonville goes 6 plays, 96 yards for 1. They end up turning the ball over on downs on the or turning the ball over. Was it the fumble? Yeah, 6 plays, 94 yards, fumbles. Javon Holland punches it out. But that defensive sequence is the perfect embodiment of all the errors that we're going to be talking about all week long. You got 2 linebackers jumping into the same gap on 1st and 10 from the Jacksonville 3. Tank Bigsby runs it for 26. You give up, you pin him at the 3. You give up 2 20-plus yard explosive plays and a 10-yard completion on the 3 next plays. What happened? It's the same way as before the half. Jacksonville going down, getting points. 1st and 10 from the 23, 57 seconds left. 18 yards, 20 yards, and then you buckle down and you kind of get into this weird sequence, end of half sequence from a clock management perspective. But you scored a touchdown. You had some momentum. Say, okay, less than a minute left. Let's stop them. You gave up 38 yards on 2 completions to start the drive. I think you saw some of the pitch count stuff between Jalen Phillips, Jalen Ramsey, moments where they weren't out there. You go in down 10 at halftime. You say, man, we're really going to have to tighten things up. You come out defensively after the half with 3 for 5 yards, 3 for -3. These are defensive possessions. 6 for 94, but you generate a turnover. You turn it over on downs, 4 for 7 yards. You force a punt, 4 for 16 yards, and you go 3 from -15. What a defensive bounce back in the second half. It felt bad and it felt ugly at times. And the game script, thankfully, Miami held just enough to keep this thing within striking distance amidst the offensive and special teams miscues, which this game, Miami, if they played to their standard, probably could have scored a lot more points than 20. But I don't care how many points you score, as long as you score more than the team on the other side. We're going to talk a little bit more about the bounce back in the second half. That's coming your way next here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins. Club Dub. Stick with us. PrizePicks, #1 fantasy sports app for playing on the daily. Over 5 million active users for you to stay in the game. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it is just you versus the numbers. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can watch the winnings roll in. For the month of September, #1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, 1 passing yard gets you 1 win for your combinations throughout the month. So let the #1 pick do some work for you this month over on PrizePicks. That's 4 weeks of free wins. Do not miss this deal on PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL. PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is sponsored by BetterHelp. What's something you would love to learn? As an adult, do you make the time that you need to learn new things as often as you'd like, or is that lost in your childhood? Kids are always learning and growing, but as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity based on everything else around us. What's something you'd like to learn? Gardening, a new language, X's and O's? Maybe how to finally beat your best friend in bowling. Therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder because your back to school era can come at any age. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Man, adversity is opportunity. Mike McDaniel said it once. He said it a million times. Star player has a traffic incident on the way into the stadium. He putts around pretty much the entirety of the first half until you finally put together a 70-play scoring drive. Your defense cracks it back open, gives up another 3 points, makes it a 2-score game going into half with Jacksonville getting the ball. Miami offensively, 7 plays, 38 yards, big catch and run from Javon Holland. We're going to talk a little bit more about Holland here in just a minute. Turn ball over on downs. 6 for 18, 3 for 6, 5 for 34. Then you go 12 for 70. That's your final offensive possession before the half. And you force a punt, and then you go 6 for 2. You force another punt, and you go 4 for 43, including taking a sack in scoring territory to take you out of scoring territory. Ugly rep for Austin Jackson, getting bulled by Trayvon Walker. That's the deal, though. Jacksonville, the edge combo of Josh Hines, Allen, and Trayvon Walker was always one of the biggest mismatch strengths that Jacksonville was going to be able to hang their hat on in this game. And I thought it showed up because you saw Miami pretty quickly got away from the outside zone running stuff. There were some instances where they kind of used it as a counter as they were trying to get stuff going, but they were trying to find drive starters. And, they found a couple decent-sized runs. I thought they had a nice run on the first one with Raheem Mostert, but he comes off the field a little shaken up. Jalen Waddle gets knocked after being dead silent for the first quarter. Has to go into the tent for concussion protocol. Just wave after wave and a very demoralizing first half. I know a lot of Dolphins fans and the timeline are sitting here. It's like, man, we can't get anything on. This is brutal. But they pushed the right buttons late. They stuck with it. They stuck with the running game. They had some opportunities in this game to convert short yardage down on the goal line. Javon Holland puts a run in on a 1-yard run out of a heavy formation. You have multiple carries by Alec Ingold for first downs in 3rd and 1 situations. It's almost like we did a whole podcast. You remember this? Do you remember doing a whole podcast? Talking about short yardage success and recipe and how the Dolphins, when they committed to running the ball on 3rd and short in certain personnel groupings, batted 1,000. They converted every opportunity in an exceptionally small sample size. And the Dolphins, their first 3rd and 2. You remember that same podcast we did? We talked about, if I get the first 3rd and 2 I'm going to come out and I'm going to throw the ball out of a heavier formation because the track record the last 2 years says you can't throw in those situations out of those heavier formations. Well, I don't have the personnel count because they got it so quick off the TV broadcast. But the first 3rd and 2 we got, the Dolphins put Tyreek Hill in the backfield and threw the ball on a 3rd and short. It's all about presenting a wider menu of challenges. And then you get later in the game. And you got Alec Ingold running fullback belly, tearing him up the middle. Ingold finished this game with what, 2 carries? ESPN's not working, so I got to change my box score count here. 2 carries for 8 yards, 2 conversions on 3rd and shorts. We had explosive plays to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Speaking of Jalen Waddle, he was targeted 5 times. He caught 5 passes for 109 yards, including the 63-yard run, catch and run. Javon Holland targeted 7 times in the passing game. Caught 7 passes for 76 yards, including that dynamic and explosive first play. Now, we didn't get the Jonnu Smith that we thought we were going to get. We didn't get the Julian Hill that we thought that maybe we were going to get. The wide receiver contributions outside of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle were nothing, to be honest. Odell Beckham was supposed to be part of that solution. He's obviously on PUP. Jonnu Smith potentially supposed to be part of that solution. We'll need to check the tape for what other opportunities were out there. You saw some new stuff. You saw some escort swing motion with orbit motion to get a guy out in front of them. You saw them run their play fakes with their boots with a bubble off the back end to try to get some easy answers for backside pressure if they were SOL, for lack of better phrasing. The Dolphins, when rubber met the road in this game, they forced a turnover on downs, missed a field goal, but then still buckled down, forced a punt, drove the length of the field, 12 plays, 73 yards, stalled out in the red zone, kicked a game-tying field goal. Jacksonville got the ball back with about 4.5 minutes left. Trevor Lawrence sacked twice in 3 plays after a stuff from David Long and company on 1st and 10, and after averaging almost 5 yards per carry allowed defensively. Emmanuel Ogbah sacked for 4 yards on a twist game. Jalen Phillips, speaking of adversity is opportunity, coming back from the Achilles tear, getting a drive-killing sack on 3rd and 14 with 3 minutes left in the game. And then Jacksonville takes a delay of game penalty to back it up another 5 yards. Dolphins go 8 plays, 31 yards, including conversion on 3rd and 1, courtesy of Alec Ingold. They had success running the ball. Jeff Wilson goes for a couple nice chunks. And the Dolphins milk the clock in a 4-minute offense situation. They take over, they possess the ball, they run the ball in key moment. They get into scoring territory thanks to an explosive play from Tua to Jalen Waddle. And they executed situationally and got by thanks to some explosive plays and a hell of a whole lot of resiliency from their defensive effort. For as easy as it felt like at times for Jacksonville to move the ball, Jacksonville finished with 267 yards of offense. And we haven't really given Javon Holland his flowers yet for his day, but we're going to get into that next because we're going to about game balls. Spoiler alert. Holland's getting one of them. That's your next as we bring home this Club Dub victory podcast. Dolphins 20, Jaguars 17. If you're trying to get down to the Rock, the good news is you don't have to wait very long for the next contest for Miami at home. They are playing the Bills on Thursday night for a chance to start the season 2-0 with a divisional win against their longtime rival. If you want to get down to the game, you got to get your tickets from Gametime. Gametime takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. It gives you panoramic views from the seats, all in pricing, so there's no surprises when you go to check out. And Gametime gives you the Gametime guarantee. They'll credit you 110% of the difference if you find cheaper tickets in the same row and section somewhere else for cheaper. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Miami finishes 33 minutes, 10 seconds, time of possession, 400 yards of offense after a slog first half. A lot of self-induced errors are really frustrating between the 4th down calls, between the holding penalties for Rob Jones. We had a successful run on that drive that stalled out to tie the game with a holding penalty on Tyreek Hill on a crack against Eric Armstead that you get your hands inside. That doesn't happen. And all of a sudden you're looking at an opportunity on a 2nd and short to really put them on their heels and maybe score a touchdown to take the lead. Game balls. Javon Holland. There's a sequence of two plays in this game that you all know if you watched the game. But if you didn't, just know this is why every moment counts. Every play can be the play that turns the game on its head. There are 5 minutes and 26 seconds left in the third quarter. Jacksonville is up 10 points and has just forced a punt from the Dolphins after taking a sack to go out of scoring territory. Big gut punch. Great punt. Pin him in. Okay, great. Tank Bigsby goes for 26. And Gabe Davis runs a stop route on Kader Kohou for 22. And then Travis Etienne gets pushed out of bounds for a 12-yard gain and then another first down. Jacksonville gets down to the 13-yard line. There's 2 minutes and 27 seconds left in the third quarter. It's the sixth play of the possession. They've completely flipped the field. They're in scoring territory. You're just sitting here hoping your breath that you force a field goal to keep it a two-score game. A two-score game. Etienne rips one up the middle. Javon Holland with the peanut punch punches out the ball from Travis Etienne. The ball squirts into the end zone. Kader Kohou falls on top of it on the back line for a recovery in the end zone. You go from going down 24-7 to possessing the ball, and it's 17-7. On the very next play, you score an 80-yard touchdown. Two to Tyree. And it felt like Javon, don't let me change the subject off Javon Holland first. There's always so much that comes out of these games, and my brain is just a mess. Javon also had a nice pass broken up earlier in the game as well on a third down to force a punt. But that play, please, I have gotten comments all year long, all offseason, talking about potential of extending Javon Holland. Everybody's asking, where are the big plays from Javon Holland? He can get paid like a top safety when he starts making big plays. There you go. There's your big play. He saved the game. Give me a break. Outstanding play from Javon Holland. Deserves a game ball, deserves a lot of love, deserves all the shout outs that he can get because that play was a touchdown. And he turned it into not a touchdown. He took 7 points off the board. Dolphins go the full length of the field the very next play. Makes it a one-score game. Game ball, Javon Holland. Game ball, Tua Tagovailoa. I know at times this game plan was frustrating, but I don't think we've gone through Tua's stats. 23 of 37 for 338 yards, averaged 9.1 yards per attempt. Yards per attempt. One touchdown, took 3 sacks, quarterback rating of 101. Very much in command and control. Now, did you have some moments? The plays are getting out late. Tua's getting guys lined up. You're deep into the play clock. Cost you some timeouts in the first half. Yes. But don't blame Tua for it. And Tua's getting guys lined up. And I'll say this was very powerful for me as this game is unfolding and Miami's trying to chase it down. And every time we had the ball, and for a long time, it didn't used to be like this. The Chad Henne years, the Matt Moore years, much of the Ryan Tannehill years, you're sitting there holding your breath like, man, please don't have a turnover. Please don't have a mistake. Please don't have a backbreaker. They were flawless down the stretch from an operations standpoint, including in the 4-minute offense possession to end the game. Now, Tua only had one completion, but that's what it called for. It explosive plays. You could see the light bulb kind of switch and say, hey, man, they're really sitting on a lot of our intermediate stuff, our glances, our in routes, our slants. They're sitting on it. They're crowding it. And then the light bulb kind of came on and said, well, hold on. Let me work through this. I'm going to run Tyreek running the glance, and the safety's going to drive out of too high, and we're going to have Waddle run the post off the other side. I'm going to lay it out there. Both of their explosive plays were deep into progression passes on the opposite side of the field from where his progression started. And a couple of home run balls. Tua managed much of it well. Would you like to have the sack back? Yes. Maybe don't sweat it as much down the stretch. I'm giving a game ball to Tua Tagovailoa. On special teams, a shout out to Elijah Campbell. Unfortunately, that play did not result in a recovery for the Dolphins, but Elijah Campbell had an excellent strip of Parker Washington after Miami scored to make it a 3-point game and almost put Miami right back in possession of the ball inside the 30-yard line. Almost. How do you not go Jason Sanders kick a game-winning field goal? I'll go tie, game balls to both specialists. Exactly where you thought we would be all offseason. Dolphins brought back Jake Bailey, one of the top 3 least popular players on the team. He forced Jacksonville to go the length of the field twice, 2 punts inside the 5. Thankfully, Miami forced a turnover on the second one of those drives where they almost did go the full length of the field. That is going to do it for us. We are going to break down more of this game tomorrow here on Locked On Dolphins. You can keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. I appreciate you guys for checking out the show. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Kick up your feet. It's Club Dub. We get to celebrate all week long. The Dolphins starting the season off with a win against Jacksonville, a resilient one. Miami scratching and clawing their way back. And the poetry is not lost on me. The last time we played this football team, a field goal from 50 plus ended a tie game. And the Dolphins were on the other side of it because they couldn't execute the 2-minute offense. They couldn't push the ball past midfield. They turned the ball over in a short yardage situation on 4th down. They did all those things this time around. And they won the game. Kyle Krabs, I'm out of here. Appreciate you guys checking out the show. Go Fins. We'll be back to talk more about this victory tomorrow on the show.